Highlighting the best of Cyprus and the inspiring commitment to art and culture, Culturescope shines the spotlight on the natural beauty and sheer diversity of the island, its previously hidden gems, and the people who continue to make a positive contribution to Cyprus, both locally and abroad. Hello, I'm Paul Lambis and welcome to the second episode of Season 2 of Culturescope, featured on Cyprus Mail's interactive web portal Good Living. Our location for this episode is the charming town of Geroskipou. Beautiful one day, perfect the next, Geroskipou has so much to discover. Surrounded by the vast translucent waters of the Mediterranean, sun-soaked beaches, five-star hotels and resorts, Byzantine churches, traces of the deeds of deities, history and tradition, Geroskipou will strengthen your cultural awareness and deepen your sense of legacy. Derived from the classical Greek Geroskipos, meaning sacred garden, the town's name was inspired by an extensive area of beautiful gardens dedicated to the ancient goddess of love and beauty, Aphrodite. Geroskipou is not just a town of mythical and natural wonder. It is a vibrant place, dotted with small chapels, churches and monuments of historical and artistic significance that testify to nearly 200 years of Christian cultural life. During the growth and spread of early Christianity, temples began to appear in caves. To hide from the persecutors of the church, believers had to gather and conduct religious services in secret. The Chapel of St. George is located within a complex of caves carved into the mountain from which sacred waters flow. The Folk Art Museum in Geroskipou features a large and diverse collection of exhibits originating from all over Cyprus, representing the daily life, crafts, activities, and different expressions of Cypriot folk art during the 19th and early 20th centuries. Founded in 1978, the Folk Art Museum is housed in a traditional 18th century building known as the House of Haji Smith and was originally part of a larger complex of buildings. As one of the best kept secrets of the Mediterranean, Geroskipou is a beautifully preserved town and a year-round destination that caters for all types of visitors in search of something unique. Roddy Damalis is a world-renowned Cypriot chef whose culinary creativity involves taking traditional recipes apart and reconstructing them in his own unique way. As one of the island's most celebrated chefs, with numerous accolades under his belt, Roddy is embarking on a new venture that welcomes diners to his stylish home. Roddy, over the past 3 decades, you've managed a portfolio of successful restaurants between South Africa and Cyprus, continuously evolving your art into providing a memorable experience for your guests. Take us back to the beginning of your food journey. How did it all start?
As a kid, I decided that I needed financial independence, as one does at the age of 13, and I got myself a job as a busboy in a restaurant in the tiny little mining town that I grew up in Culturescope. And the rest is history, as they say. I bought my first restaurant at the age of 21. So that was a 10-year success story, and then, which you've been to. My second restaurant, again, I bought on a whim, and that was on the high streets of Johannesburg. That, from day one, was a success. I must state at the moment that I often get referred to as a chef. Okay, and I'm not. My experience in the food industry is hands-on experience, and that's why I refer to myself as a restaurateur. rather than a chef. And I don't say that in a derogatory way, I say it in the most respectful way to a qualified chef. Despite what my restaurants' names have been throughout the years, people generally automatically used to say, or do say, let's go to Roddy's. And that's where this concept has evolved from, which again we'll get into later.
You've had the privilege of leading a varied and colourful life. What inspired you to start stirring up the culinary scene in Cyprus?
When we moved here, I was going into completely uncharted territory. I came here with a copy of my grandfather's passport, and I will forever be grateful that Cyprus said to me, "Kalos ήρθες γέμου." Welcome home, my son. Had I opened a restaurant anywhere else and not somewhere as cosmopolitan as Lemeso, I don't know whether its instant success would have been what it was. Because what I decided to do here was go parts of the menu, traditional, our lukanika, our basturmades, the next thing. I would have a Greek salad on the menu as well as my salad with fresh figs and honey mustards and all sorts of things, etc. But what happened is that I eventually saw that the guests that were coming were going for the unusual things. And that's where I decided that I was going to go completely in the opposite direction, because me cooking Greek food or Cypriot food in Cyprus is cold to Newcastle. So that's where I started drawing on my travels, on my childhood roots, etc., and that's what evolved my cuisine today. Within the first 3 years, I had experienced a lot of my guests that have lived in Cyprus and walk into a supermarket and see things like kolokasi or things like bamyes or sujuko or rows and rows of preserved fruit, etc., and not really know what to do with them. I mean, you go through the vegetable section of a supermarket, you're going to get artichokes, you're going to have 45 different kinds of horta, etc. And so what had happened at some stage is that I said to a couple of friends by then, listen, why don't we get together at the restaurant, tell me what you'd like to learn how to cook, and I'll show you a couple of dishes. And that evolved into my cookery workshops that today is an intrinsic part of my business, but also an intrinsic part of my connection with people with food, because it's a one-on-one where you spend 4 and 5 hours eating, drinking, cooking together and communicating, which in the restaurant, as you know, you flip from one table to the next, and yes, you do have an amazing time, but this gives you a lot of bonding time. So as a result, I started formulating recipes for that. I decided, you know what, that seeing as I share them in the workshops, I'd love to share the recipes that I make in the restaurant. This particular book, however, is a piece of my soul. It's 3 books in one. Number 1, it's my philosophy on life as well as my philosophy on food. Okay, so yes, absolutely, I'm opening up there. Sharing of the recipes, as I've explained, I love the fact that I share them. They become immortalized because they're now on paper. And as a man without children, these are my babies. And this is part of the legacy that I will leave behind. If anybody had said to me, listen, I would reach international acclaim and acknowledgement from a little 50-seater restaurant in a side street in Lemeso, there's no way I would have believed them. So when a year ago we were hit with this bizarrity and the surreal experience that we're all living at the moment, my big decision was to close this gem, which was my universe. Basically, it was my social life. It was everything. And what I decided was that I couldn't take that experience and put it in a box and put it into a scooter and deliver it to somebody's house. I could take the food, which would have been exactly the same product, but the other elements which made the dining experience would have been missing. And I decided that any artist, it's something that I live by, to be honest, that bows out on a high is to be respected. And that's why I decided to make that decision, which was one of the hardest decisions I've ever had to make.
What has been the most defining moment in your life?
I am the product, and I think we all are the product of our life experience and our circumstances. So I would say pivotal experiences going back would be losing my father at the age of 15, which was a pivotal experience from the point of view that I became the man of the house at such a young age. So that was big. I would say that moving to Cyprus would be another life-altering experience. Anybody that's moved countries will know that it's a shift on every possible level. I had the privilege a few years ago of being invited to speak at TEDx, to be asked to be on an international platform and being told influence people with your life story was a massive compliment. Having grown up in a society both as a child and here where homosexuality was taboo and to a certain degree still is, I think coming out as a gay man was huge in my life, because it was something that it was a part of your life that you had to hide under incredible circumstances, and that means that you hide the essence of who you are and you live a lie. So I believe that was also a very, very big life-altering experience where I could admit to myself who I am and also say, listen guys, if you don't like who I am, then please feel very, very welcome to not be part of my life. However, I have to say on this point is that I'm 1,000 things before I'm a gay man. Okay, and I hate being defined just by that. And but it is something that I feel is part of the whole of who I am, and I respect how people have respected me, because it depends on how one purports oneself. It doesn't matter your race, your sexuality, your age, your ethnicity, whatever. It's how you present yourself as a human being in this life. This project over here is my latest big, exciting new chapter. My view is all about is the fact that I can do what I do best on a smaller scale, and being part of people's special occasions is what I want to be part of, which I've always been part of. People have had everything from wedding proposals to anniversaries to whatever you can think of in my restaurants within those walls, and it's been our privilege to have been able to be part of that and facilitated that. So, however, since I've started letting people know about this, people have intrinsically, automatically understood that it's a special occasion kind of place. I grew up in the church and I adore the tradition of it. My chapel that I have in my own home, which is one of the most special places in the world for me, because of the fact that the icons were painted for me by my mother. If you had to say to me, what is your most prized earthly possession, it would have to be that. Khalil Gibran said that if you bake bread with a bitter heart, you will bake a bitter bread. The second I feel that I'm not giving that 100% and that I'm not wanting to be doing what I'm doing anymore, I will firstly see it in the face of my guests, but I would like to hang up my apron on a high. Now, whether that's in a year or 2 years or 5 years, a time, I don't think I could put a timeline on it, but I think it will be I will know it here. And then of course it will just be a new chapter. It will be the apron that will be hung up, but who knows.
Mariza Anastasiades has struck the hearts of audiences worldwide with her commitment and passion for opera. With a repertoire spanning from the Renaissance to the Baroque eras to 21st century music, Mariza's opera performances are full of passion, truthfulness, and a love for a musical genre she acquired from a young age in Cyprus. Mariza, you've been recognized internationally for your extraordinary vocals and your engaging and moving performances. When did you have your first encounter with opera?
At the age of 11, I traveled with my mom in New York for the first time, and I was lucky enough to watch with her Mozart's Magic Flute at the Metropolitan Opera and the Phantom of the Opera musical theater on Broadway. It was a musical feast of fascinating voices, riveting actors, spectacular sets and costumes. It was something unprecedented for a child born and raised in Cyprus. I remember myself turning to my mom and saying, "This is the place where I want to work when I grow up."
In 2019, you received the Laureate Prize with the highest score in the category Professional Opera Singers at the International Singing Competition in Belgrade. Has this award had the most important effect on your career so far?
The experience of performing in such an international jury was amazing. When my name was announced as a winner of the Laureate Prize, that moment I was so thankful to God. And at the same time, in my mind came my parents, my husband and my two daughters, who I was away from for so many days. It's really challenging to be an artist, performer, mother at a young age and chasing your dreams. But I think I'm managing this. In April 2021, I received the Grand Prix Awards in Croatia in the international competition Stoyan Stoyanev Janchev. Of course, I am proud of representing Cyprus, and since we don't have a long tradition with opera here and opera singers, so yes, of course, I can say that I'm really proud for this.
What has been the most defining moment in your professional career?
This would be a very hard question to answer, since I get attached with every single performance and every piece of music that I have to perform. But if I am to choose, I can say that the most touching moment was at the European City closing ceremony, Pafos 2017. I will never forget the moment of the performance, the enormous stage, the sets, and the magnificent setting, and the most touching of all, the thousands of people that came to watch the performance in such a cold weather.
Which soprano, past or present, do you feel embodies the greatest qualities as an opera singer?
I take pleasure in watching great sopranos and being inspired by them. Maria Callas was the first soprano I got to know as a child, and she was the first soprano I idolized and took an interest in. As a teen, I wanted to learn everything about her technique and her dramatic talent. Maria Callas defined what it meant to be a diva, and even today, Maria Callas is a towering figure of opera. I find the temperament and the stage presence of Anna Netrebko outstanding. She's the paradigm of free spirit. She's dancing and doing anything she likes. Watching her is captivating. Aida Garifoulina is another opera figure that I admire for the charmness and the sweetness of her voice. She's so fresh and tender. As well as Diana Damrau. I love her technique and the coloraturas she has. There are so many great sopranos I can mention, but what it comes down to is to be a great soprano, one must be willing to work hard and tirelessly. I have so much energy each morning, and I start each day with smile, positive energy of course, and I'm always grateful and thankful to God that I have my health. My personal motto is be happy with what you have, work on with what you love, and great things will happen.
George, you've been at the helm of Aphrodite Delight since 1994. What were the challenges you encountered while trying to reach a modern audience with a traditional product?
The first and bigger issue were whether we have to stay here in the small workshop in Geroskipou Square, or if we want to see further and create a bigger purpose-built factory, new facilities actually. We need to introduce research and development for upgrade the products and create new. So these were the biggest challenge. Until 1955 there were no electricity in the area. So everything was made by hand. Then start working with electricity and use the diesel for the production. After diesel we introduced gas, which better for food production. So we try to upgrade the product with respect to the recipes and what we get, and actually we are focused on this. We try to make the product better and more options. We keep the same recipe and we try to put even better ingredients and better ways of production, but the recipe is exactly the same.
What are the factors that give Lucumi Geroskipou its uniqueness?
Lucumi Geroskipou have the uniqueness that we use, as I already told you, only pure ingredients. So it's vegan and they have a long shelf life without any additives in it. So this gives a uniqueness compared to similar products. The other uniqueness is actually the reason that we keep producing as a family for 126 years now, continuously. So this add-on is a uniqueness, I think.
Lucumi Geroskipou has earned acceptance as one of Cyprus's traditional products. How has this helped you expand your market reach and your brand awareness?
It was one of the main challenges you asked before. The main effort of that is to get the awareness of the European Union with protected geographical indication. We try hard even before Cyprus entered the European Union, where the regulation was complicated and not clear enough. So for years we focused on that, and we managed at 2004 to be the first Cypriot product to get the national GI, and then after 3 years of more efforts, we get the official European recognition. This issue was a milestone for the factory and for Cyprus traditional products in general. So for 15 years, we represent Cyprus Republic in gastronomical culture events worldwide.
What are the modern variations of the sweet available at Aphrodite Delights?
The products start with some specific flavor, such as rose or bergamot, and with the addition of almond nuts. But during the year, we produce the same way, but just changing the flavor, which means that it's a minor change. Everybody in Cyprus, they grow up with this product, or their parents or their grandparents grew up with this, so they feel that it's something that belongs partly to them. The expatriates, whenever I'm visiting events abroad, which is one of the main things that they remember childhood or families. So I feel all this in atmosphere, and that every day we have a new exam. So every new box, it's like a piece of paper that we have to pass.
Stephan Caras is a Greek-born, internationally renowned fashion designer, boasting some of the world's most sophisticated and distinctive creations. His established Toronto-based label has become synonymous with elegance, class and self-assurance, and is a statement of inner beauty and sensuality. Stephan, your status as a top-tier fashion designer has earned you a spot in the top 25 most beloved and inspiring fashion designers around the world. How did your odyssey begin?
It started when I was very young, actually, a young teenager, where I grew up in Australia. And my sister was a designer, and that had some influence in me. Just spending time in her studio as a child. I was intrigued by the pieces of fabrics, the colors, and it was craft for me in the beginning. And I started to experiment with the needle, and that's how it all started. You know, as a teenager and very young, just approaching my 20s, I did a couple of shows in Australia that impressed people, and by incident, there was a French designer by the name Philippe Benet presenting his collection in Australia at the time, and I got an invitation to work for him. And that's how I moved. It was a dream for me to be in Paris at some point. And I ended up there, but as it turned out, I didn't even work for him, but I made other contacts, and I worked with Guy Laroche, and I worked with Hermes, and I freelanced for a lot of other top names.
Over the many years working together and interacting with clients around the world, definitely femininity and confidence is a universal. And that's something that we all strive to express in our own unique way. And we're here to listen to them and to create and to try and expose those emotions and that confidence from within. And it gives us a particular challenge, but in the end, we overcome that. And to see that interaction face to face in every country is very unique, is very different, but to be able to adapt and to see the differences gives us inspiration. We're able to draw on that and get a different perspective of what that means in every country. And it gives us inspiration in how we create these timeless pieces and how we feel that it might evoke this confidence in all of our customer base, or whoever's just a fan of, you know, what we create.
Kyriakos, you are following in your father's footsteps. Is your vision aligned with your father's, and what are your future plans for the Caras label?
The legacy is everything. It doesn't just represent a brand, it represents a lifetime of history and knowledge. There's not a lot of people out there who have this knowledge these days. You know, you live in a globalized world. There's a lot of automation, there's a lot of human disconnect. The intrinsic details of being a true designer and a tailor, these are all master techniques that are learned over decades. From the moment that it gets sewn and put together to the moment where somebody puts it on and takes a life, there's a lot of knowledge, a lot of care and detail that we put into it in order to get to that stage. If you don't continue the legacy, all that knowledge is lost or reset from the beginning with the next generation. Carrying learned knowledge forward, adapting it to the modern times, and really being able to carry on what we've worked for and what we stand for all these years. Fashion is about making people feel better or evoking some kind of emotion from within. And that's what it comes down to, is understanding who you're working with in order to make them feel the best. And that is a legacy in itself, is all about that human connection.
We had wonderful memories from Cyprus, that show we did. I was intrigued by the beauty of people, and I guess this is my philosophy. Your sparkle, or your love for people, it kind of reflects out, and people see it if they have that kind of feeling. And we felt that in Cyprus. Like we met wonderful people, and we have become really good friends, and we hope we can do that again in Cyprus.
Jelena Popovic is the writer, director and producer of Man of God, a film about the life of Saint Nectarios. In an exclusive interview with Culturescope, Jelena talks about the value of orthodoxy in her life and in the life of the film's collaborators.
We cannot take the risk of him becoming a patriarch. He consorts with harlots on the streets. I know it is hard for you to believe that he can be a Judas, but it's true, Your Holiness. I'm not even sure about his good heart.
You think that you can come here and pretend to be holy?
I'm starting to think that you're not human.
You seem to be the real deal. No wonder they don't like you.
We will demand Patriarch Sophron to be removed and place you in his position.
Get out. Yelena, the movie was made in cooperation with the Vatobevi Monastery of the Holy Mount Athos. It will soon be in cinemas both in Cyprus and Greece, and it is a homage that's paid to Saint Nectarios 100 years after his passage to eternal life. What was your inspiration behind the visual narrative of the film?
Simply in 2012, when I was in Belgrade, I went to this monastery and I just simply bought a book about Saint Nectarios because he was one of the saints that I heard about, but I didn't know exactly his story. And I decided, I was living in Los Angeles at the time, in the United States, and I was just visiting Serbia. My father at the time had passed, and it's been a year since him passing. And I bought a book and I wanted to read something on the way back to Los Angeles. And then when I read about him, it's when I was struck like with the lightning. You know, it was something, I was extremely inspired and moved by his story. And I felt that it had elements that it would be very useful nowadays. You know, there were some elements in it that are very universal that I could share with the audience, and I felt it would be a good film. I kept going with it. I didn't give up, and thanks to Saint Nectarios, I really believe the film got made at the end.
What should viewers take away from the film?
I hope it transcends to the audience, that it helps people. That was my main goal, because I feel that his story has very much that potential to help people, to encourage people, to enlighten people, uplift people, all of these great things that we all need, especially nowadays. Before you write a script, actual script, you usually have to have some kind of outline, an idea, storyline, and you have to decide, what is this film really about? You know, you can make 20 different films about somebody, you know, but it's always better to have a somewhat of a premise to a story that you're trying to tell. I was in Athens and I went to Egina for the first time, and I took that outline and I put it on his tomb when I went to pray to him, and I asked him, you know, if it's his will, if it's God's will, to please help me to make this film, because obviously without his blessing and it's not going to be possible. Somehow the doors were opening. I ended up getting a really good Greek producer, Kostas Lambropoulos. I ended up getting an amazing actor to play, who was really meant to play this role, Arisa Vitalis. I ended up working with an incredible actors, Greek actors, and then there was some, including some international cast, Mickey Rourke and Alexander Petrov. I ended up working with incredible director of photography, costume designer. All the people were on board with this all of a sudden, a little by little, as the things were unfolding. And obviously without the help of Yaron Daifrem from Vatopedi, this wouldn't have happened. So I want to thank him for this. We were at Moscow International Film Festival. We actually won audience award in the main competition for the best film. We screened the film at the Los Angeles Greek Film Festival. We also won audience award. We were there nominated for the best film, for the best director and the best actor. But we also won audience award. And we are also in the competition in Phoenix Film Festival in the US. And that's going to be, the film is going to be playing August 14th and 15th. So, and we also have some other submissions, but we'll see. I'll be able to talk about it subject to being accepted, you know, in the festival.
Mickey Rourke has a short yet impactful role in the film. What was he like during filming, and what was his encounter like with orthodoxy?
I was thinking of that role. It plays a role of a paralyzed man who, in the end of the movie, obviously, it's a true story. There was a man who was next to Saint Nectarios' bed in the hospital, and after Saint Nectarios died, who got up and walked after Saint Nectarios passed away after a contact with his undershirt. I thought the movie should be done in English and have a couple of international names. And one of the people I thought about was Mickey Rourke for that particular role. That was my, at least, wish at the beginning. And the reason I thought of him was because, apart from him being a fantastic actor, obviously we know what he's capable of on that level, He's a great actor, but also he's somebody who has the depth to play that role, but also somebody who has a lot of heart, and he suffered in his life, and he's been troubled, and he's trying to find a way, and he's sort of a fighter, so I felt that somebody like that would be a good person to play that role. He read a script and he was willing to do it, and one thing that I can say about him, that his approach to this role was absolutely incredible. He really went all the way emotionally to give me whatever he could, because he knew how deep his performance had to be and how difficult it was. And he really, all I can say, I'm very grateful that he was willing to do that, and that he did it really from his heart. There was a press conference and I was there, but when we were done, I asked him, I actually took him to a church, St. Nectarius Church in Mariza, where Ioannida Nectarius Vitalis was living. Now he's passed away. And he walked into the church and he kneeled down in prayer, and he even had the priest pray over him. And when he walked out of the church, he was so blown away. He sat there and he said that that was the most important thing he's done coming to Greece.
I understand why the people of Egypt love you. We had you here for a short time and you've performed miracles.
You're a holy man, Your Grace. I lost my eyesight due to illness when I was very little. There is so much light in your presence.
We feel that you don't exercise enough authority.
A healthy balance between kindness and authority is best.
Where is the evidence of my crime? An accusation that condemns me to a moral death.
If it had been done to me, what has been done to you, I would not go to church anymore.
Holy man of God, will you please pray for me?
The position of power is like a cancer. It eats at you, slowly.
I wish I would have faith.
Father, why don't you say something?
It's not enough that you are trying to persuade everyone in here to become a priest. Now you're grooming nuns from here too? What are you doing with these women?
Why are you doing this?
Refrain from coming here!
My body may be withering away, but my soul is not.
Stay connected and follow us on social media. If you want to be featured on Culturescope, contact our production team by visiting the website below. Until next time, stay safe and let culture transform your life.